Hello, Lena. Welcome to Mr. Quickest Teaches. In this lesson, I'll be analyzing Fleur Adcock's poem, The Telephone Call. I'll speak about the themes, the figures of speech, the point of view, the poet's tone, the mood of the poem, the structure and other devices, stylistic and otherwise that Adcock uses to strikingly present the telephone conversation between the poetic voice, an unidentified poetic voice or the persona, and a group of callers from Universal Lotteries. Let's dive in. Now, let me begin by speaking about the poet Fleur Adcock. She was born on the 10th of February 1934. She's a New Zealand poet and editor of English and Northern Irish ancestry. She has lived most of her life in England. Now, she's well represented in New Zealand poetry and anthologies. And she was also awarded honorary doctorate of literature from Victoria University of Wellington, and was awarded an OBE in 1996 for her contribution to New Zealand literature. In 2008, she was made a companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to literature. So essentially, that's a brief background of the poet Fleur Adcock. Now, in terms of the poem has 6 stanzas. So there are 6 stanzas in total, and each of the stanzas has 8 lines. So that's the nature of the poem. So each of the stanzas are octet stanzas. Now, in the telephone call, Adcock recounts the interaction between, like I've already mentioned, a poetic voice and a group of people from Universal Lotteries. The poem is about pranks, an innocent, well, not exactly innocent, totally innocent, but then an innocent prank when you compare it to the kind of pranks that we see today. So the callers call the poetic voice and announce to her that she's won £1,000,000. In fact, more than £1,000,000. And then they try to elicit her reaction or how she would react to the news of having won £1,000,000. Now, one of the past questions I saw, quite recently for 2023, says, how does Adcock strikingly present the people from Universal Lotteries? So I'll speak about that. So, for example, she presents them as people that are rather caring, right, or thoughtful. And then she also presents them as people that are emotional manipulators. They are sly, persuasive. Those are some of the adjectives with which I'll describe how they are presented. And there's an A-star quality essay as well as part of the course. So please look at it when you purchase the course, or you're in the you're on my website, mrquickestteaches.com. Now, let me begin the analysis itself by reading the poem, The Telephone Call, Fleur Adcock. They asked me, "Are you sitting down?" "Right. This is Universal Lotteries," they said. "You've won the top prize, the Ultra Super Global Special. What will you do with £1,000,000? Or, actually, with more than £1,000,000. Not that it makes a lot of difference once you're a millionaire." And they laughed. "Are you okay?" they asked. "Still there? Come on now, tell us, how does it feel?" I said, I can't believe it. They said, "That's what they all say." "What else? Go on, tell us about it." I said, "I feel the top of my head has floated off, out through the window, revolving like a flying saucer." "That's unusual," they said. "Go on." I said, "I'm finding it hard to talk. My throat's gone dry, my nose is tingling. I think I'm going to sneeze or cry." "That's right," they said. "Don't be ashamed of giving way to emotions. It isn't every day you hear you're going to get £1,000,000. Relax now, have a little cry. We'll give you a moment." "Hang on," I said. "I haven't bought a lottery ticket for years and years. And what did you say the company is called?" They laughed again. "Not to worry about the ticket. We're Universal. We operate a retrospective chances model. Nearly everyone's bought a ticket in some lottery or another. Once at least. We buy up the files, feed the names into our computer, and see who the lucky person is. Well, that's incredible, I said. It's marvelous. I still can't quite. I'll believe it when I see the check. Oh, they said, there's no check. But the money, we don't deal in money. Experiences are what we deal in. You've had a great experience, right? Exciting? Something you remember? That's your prize. So, congratulations from all of us at Universal. Have a nice day. And the line went dead. So, when you look at the poem, you realize that Adcock uses multiple devices here to make the interaction between the unnamed persona and then the people from Universal Lotteries quite captivating. Now, one of the things I want you to note is the use of direct speech, right? So that tells us that Adcock is recounting both the words of the callers and then the poetic voice verbatim, so word for word. Another thing I also want you to note is the use of contractions as well. So we see the use of contractions by the callers and also by the poetic voice. To me, the use of contractions by the callers exposes that they are not very professional. When they tell in the third line, for example, you've. So for me, that's sort of signals. And then the fact that they were laughing as well. But those are like two key points I want you to note. So the use of direct speech and also the use of contractions as well. Now, observe that the direct speech, unlike the conventions of English where you're supposed to put each, anytime anybody is speaking in dialogue, you have to put it in a new line. Adcock uses poetic license here to deviate from that. I'll speak about that, as the analysis progresses. Now, the poetic voice opens the poem arrestingly in the first line by recounting, they asked me, are you sitting down? So that's the first thing that they ask there, are you sitting down? To me, the fact that they ask, are you sitting down, makes them, come across as thoughtful. That's one of the traits that I saw, when they asked, are you sitting down? Now, observe that she uses the plural third person pronoun they, which shows that she spoke to or heard the voices of two or more people. That is, she had a conference call with a group of callers. Now, also, her decision to begin the poem with they reveals that in the initial stages of her interaction with the callers, she did not know their identities. So she just says they, so she did not know their identities. Now, presumably because they did not mention their names. Now, the second word in the poem is asked, which reveals that she was queried or questioned. And we're going to see that a lot in the poem. The fact that the people from Universal Lotteries asked a lot of questions, especially about emotional reaction to the news that she's won more than £1 million. Now, it also tells that she's recounting a past experience because asked, that's the word they asked, is in the past tense. While the first person pronoun me shows that she's recounting a personal experience. So the poetic voice is recounting her own personal experience and was the one with whom the people from Universal Lotteries around this point, their identities has not been revealed. They spoke to her directly. So it's not that they called some other person that told her that the people called. They spoke to her directly. Now, observe that she does not use a comma after the word me in the first line to separate the two parts of a sentence. Now, this creates the impression that at the start of the poem, the poetic voice's phone conversation with the day was rushed and quick. So there was this way that they rushed her. So they asked me, are you sitting down? So there was no breathing space of sorts. Now, finally, her decision to begin the poem with the revelation, they asked me, creates the impression that the poetic voice felt that she was at an inquest or an interrogation. The British would say an inquest, but they were just asking her very deep, cutting questions. Now, in the second part of the line, that's the first line, which she separates from the first with an open quotation. So observe the use of open quotation before the word are, right? She reveals that the first question they asked her was, are you sitting down? Her use of quotation mark as she begins to present the questions that she was asked shows that she is reproducing the words of the callers verbatim. That's word for word. Now also, the fact that the callers asked the poetic voice her posture. So, are you sitting down? That's a posture. They want to know a posture. Instead of introducing themselves and trying to verify her identity, is against the etiquette of a formal phone conversation. Because if they are calling her from, like they said, from a lottery company, they ought to reveal their identity first. So, and also find out hers as well. But then the very first thing they ask her is, are you sitting down? Now, The question also creates suspense in the reader's mind about who the callers are. Who are these people? And why is that the very first question they ask the poetic voices, are you sitting down? That's like the first question that they ask. So why did they ask such a question? Now, furthermore, are you sitting down is a striking question because it tells that the callers wanted to make certain that the persona was in a relaxed posture. So she had taken a relaxed posture, presumably because they wanted to relay emotionally sensitive information that they believed would cause her to react strongly and likely make her feel dizzy and fall if she were standing. You see, so furthermore, their query, are you sitting down, does not expose the nature of the news, right? If it is good or bad. So if you're asked, the very first question you're asked is, are you sitting down? The nature of the news is not revealed if it's good or bad. But then the fact of the matter is that it's a message or it's information that may cause you to react in a way that may even cause you your death or injury. So when I was reading this poem, for example, and then I saw the question, one of the first things that came to my mind was, in Forrest Gump, there's this portion where Forrest Gump recounts that he wrote a check and then sent it to Baba's mother. When Baba's mother received the check, she just fell. Because I think the news was shocking to her. She fell. Fainted. And sometimes people have been known to even die from hearing that they've won lotteries. So that's, I think, is the reason why they asked her, are you sitting down? Now, however, hearing the question, are you sitting down, makes the reader infer that the callers realize that the information that they wanted to relay or they want to relay to her, that's a poetic voice, is so sensitive that it is likely to make her faint from shock, something that is less likely to happen if she's sitting or if she were sitting. Because being seated is a more relaxed position than standing. Or if anything at all, at least their bodies are at rest. The blowback or the effects may be minimal. Sitting also means that she is less likely to faint if she feels faint after hearing the news. Finally, the caller's decision to ask the poetic voice if she's seated presents them as thoughtful. So that's one of the first things that we see about them. Their thoughtfulness, or what comes across as their thoughtfulness. For me, I don't think it's genuine thoughtfulness because, ultimately it's just a prank or a hoax call about, informing her that she's won money that she has not won. Now, the poetic voice opens the second line by revealing that they added right to expose that they earnestly wanted to know if she was seated. Are you seated? They wanted to be sure. Secondly, asking right may be the caller's way of reiterating to her that she take a seat. So you have to take a seat if you're not. If you've not done so already, because what they're about to reveal would elicit an emotional response. They knew that, so they're saying, right? Are you seated right? Also, asking right is their way of making sure that she's physically and emotionally ready for the news that they are about to reveal to her. Now, although the poet does not reveal the personal state of mind, the poetic voice's state of mind, it is likely that she was anxious around this point, right? Because the callers continue by introducing their company by saying this is Universal Lottery. So they now introduce themselves. This is Universal Lotteries. Now, their use of proper nouns seen in the capitalization of the first word in the alphabet, universal, see the capitalization of the U and then the L, shows that they expect the poetic voice, or they expect that the poetic voice would have heard about them before, or at least they wanted to know that, see, we are a company, right? A company. So furthermore, Universal suggests that the group has a global footprint. So they have footprint all over the world, and they are also a multinational company, while Lotteries tells that they raise money by selling numbered tickets and giving prizes to the holders of numbers drawn at random. Now, this is really important because later on, we are told that they buy the tickets from the other lottery companies instead, which is quite strange. So where do they get their monies from? So Universal tells us that it's a global brand, possibly something that is engaging by people from all over the world. Now, simply, Universal Lotteries means that the callers run a worldwide scheme where they choose a lucky lottery winner from one country in the world. So imagine how lucky she would have felt. So winning such a lottery would mean that the person who's won it is exceedingly lucky, right? So that's like luck is on her side. Now, she ends the line with a end quotation mark, which signals that she has paused the quotation before employing a comma, which indicates a pause. So observe that when she says, "Are you sitting down?" the quotation now ends, the quotation mark or close quotation appears in the end of the second line of the first stanza. Now, she begins the third line with "they said." So, which shows that she's reproducing the words of the callers verbatim. Remember, I talked about the use of direct speech. So, the use of "they said" there shows that she's reporting their words with direct speech. After a full stop that indicates the end of the sentence, she again employs open speech marks that signals that she is again about to quote verbatim. So, Adcock is again about to quote verbatim. Now, it is likely that she does this to signal that it was a different caller that spoke to the persona. I'm not certain. Because if it were the same caller, maybe she would have said, "Oh, just gone on and on." But then she says, there's this end quotation mark, "they said," and then now another speaker, or if it's the same caller, the person now changes the focus of the conversation around this point. Now, the very first news they revealed to her, remember they asked her, she's sitting down, then introduced themselves. Now, the very first news they revealed to her is that she's won the top prize. You see. So she adds that the person told her, "You've won the top prize," which means that she has won the most money and will receive the highest prize. Now, winning the top prize in the lottery also presents her as the luckiest lottery participant in the whole world. So imagine what's happening in the head of the poetic voice around this point. Now, in the fourth line of the stanza, they describe what she won as the ultra super global special. Now observe the use of multiple, superlative terms. So ultra, for example, ultra, super, global, and special. All of these words are mostly adjectives. But then these words have like this idea that she's won like the highest prize ever. Now, the terms ultra and super are prefixes, right? They are prefixes that are somewhat synonymous. So it is possible that the callers deliberately coined the expression to create the most superlative sounding name for the prize. And they did that to exaggerate its global status and emphasize its paramountcy. So global also creates the impression that the lottery is played around the world. So remember, universal are now global again. So it's played around the world in countless countries. Finally, the ultra super global special is a specific name of the prize that the callers claim has been won by the poetic voice. So this presents her as the luckiest person in the whole wide world. So observe that they use superlative words, top prize, and they do all of this, I think, to emotionally manipulate the poetic voice. Hello, learner. I hope you've enjoyed the lesson so far. This is a sample video analysis of this poem. To access the full analysis, purchase it or the entire course with detailed analysis of all the 15 poems, the elements of literature in each poem, and IGCSE style questions, both passage-based and general. There are also A-star quality sample essays as well at mrquickesteaches.com. Find the links in the description. See you in class.